So we're going to get into this exciting, prolific interview with Kamala Harris talking with Bret Baier from Fox. I bet you guys didn't know that Kamala played football, did you? Because you get to watch her fumble in real time. This is a viral news source. Let's go.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bret.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Her blood is boiling.
I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
How many of you who have not seen this interview believe that Kamala is going to be polite and she's going to be very peaceful and non-confrontational in this interview? Because if that's what you believe, you're wrong. Let's go.
Bret, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a
She didn't cut him off already with the first question. Let's go.
broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
It's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of
system
6 million people
that
have been
needs to be-
released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies.
You know, one thing I hate about the Democrats, I've noticed this with Bill, with Biden, but especially with the females like Hillary and Kamala, how they always put on that fake smile. And it's so see-through, and they just do so many things that are so disgusting. I don't know, maybe like when Hillary pulled out a bottle of hot sauce, starts talking in a southern accent, kind of like what Kamala did this year. Let's continue.
Most significantly,
I don't want to forget they had Megan Thee Stallion. Yeah, she's an honorable person to have at a Democratic convention. Yeah, I'm sure. The girl who's twerking a lot. Yeah, we really want to see that, Kamala.
policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially
I like how Bret Baier seems so prepared, ready to fire off all of the facts. Let us continue. Kamala, I think you are in over your head, baby.
But
pathway to citizenship for the
finish?
Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
Are you getting perturbed, Kamala? Is that what's happening here? What's going on? He's been so polite. Bret Baier has been very polite to you. Let's continue.
But you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they didn't bring up
in the
that
middle of
bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Bret looking like he had a fresh round of Botox shot in his face. You go, boy.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system.
Bret Baier is looking like, itch, please.
And put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border.
Do you mean organizations that Hunter Biden possibly could have been involved with, getting massive amounts of money? You mean organizations like that? Let us continue, people.
State,
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump.
I believe Hunter Biden has been involved with drugs. I don't know if he was trafficking them, but I know he was using them, and maybe he does have some ties to some cartel to get his drugs. Who knows? But did you start with him?
Let me just finish.
6
and
Democrats
Donald
voted
Trump
against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that.
Here she goes with the BS.
There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred.
Answer the question, Kamami.
So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm
cut her off.
would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Here we go.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program.
Okay, so I think Kamami's going to be going out to go catch the pass at probably about, let's say, the 20-yard line. This is going to be a really big fumble coming up. Let's watch.
This meant that they were released into the United States. It It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early
Kabama, what are you about to do? Let's hear Kabama.
days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm
I will
saying.
tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
Yeah, right.
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an
Watch her go back to Trump. Hold on.
individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you
Brett,
want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told
There she
you I
is.
feel awful for
She just went back to Trump without saying his names, and I hadn't even seen this part. I knew she was going back there. You are so disgusting.
what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before.
There we go.
Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need
You've been in there 4 years, so you should keep the attention off of Trump, okay? And you need to talk about you guys watch that you're on right now. But what do? You fumble, and then you go back to Trump. Kamala, you should be ashamed of yourself.
more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress.
I bet you she wish she was hitting a blunt right now and drinking a margarita, because she is getting very uneasy.
Ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support.
Yeah, they're frustrated with you guys' lies. That's why people are frustrated with all of this political talk and not any real talk and real action. One thing I can say about Donald Trump, not that I'm voting for him or her, but what I will say, one thing I believe people like, I mean, be him right or being wrong, because the guy does have diarrhea of the mouth, but he will shoot you straighter than any other political candidate or president I've ever seen, any politician in the history of this country. You may not like what he says, but he will speak his mind, and he will keep it as real as he can. And I believe that's why a lot of people are attracted to him, and they would prefer someone like him in office versus this. Let's go.
And that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
Why does
There's a
she
lot of people
keep
that look back at
looking
what you
away?
said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been
She's looking like she has animosity for him. The way she kind of looked at him like as if, you know, like when people are in prison and they like look down and up at you, like because they're about to do something very aggressive to you. Like she seems really aggressive towards Bret Baier. Let's continue.
changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for
You
free
did.
tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
Is that an answer?
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, who governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law.
Oh,
So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So it's decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has...
She always wants to be very clear, but she's never being very clear. I don't get it. Kamala?
Prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania.
Did she say that she will do that work as vice president? Let's back that up real quick. Hold up.
Us harm and cross our border illegally, and I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite...
Kamala, I think you're confused because you are the vice president right now. But I think the pressure is so intense on your brain from Bret Baier that you're fumbling without even knowing that you're fumbling, and you are just trying to stay afloat with your head about maybe an inch out of the water with your neck tilted back. Your nostrils are just like right above the water because you know you're about to drown. Let's continue.
Quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial.
Shining, Bret.
Many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Hold up.
Supports tax.
One
Look
from
at
the
her
Trump
face as
campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes.
She looks so perturbed. Look at this. Watch.
Campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Look at that. She is extremely perturbed. She is pissed. And look at Bret. He looks like Michael Jordan about to take off from the free throw line and put it between his legs and do a 360 dunk. And then start stunting on him with the Millie Rock after he does it. Look at her face. Golly. I think you are a little pissed off. Kabama?
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, Chewbacca? Let's go.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another
Here's
gender?
the fumble. Let's go.
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with...
Why does she have... See, now you're starting to piss me off. Can we get this person to answer the question without bringing in another party? And that goes to show you how weak this whole squad is, the Democrats, because their number one rule in their playbook is to blame everything on Trump, as if a lot of American people are not intelligent and we don't see what they're doing. Let us proceed. Kabama?
Now it's a public report that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take
during
responsible for what happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I
have
think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's...
Why would that even be a topic in government? Why would the government, these Democrats namely, want to support people having sex changes? Are you guys down with the freak-offs too? I mean, what's going on? You guys are a group of weirdos. I mean, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do with your body, but to say that the government should be responsible for paying for your gender reassignment, okay? What about the plight of black people, but namely black men, huh? What about reparations for black people? So you mean to tell me that they are willing to put money into gender reassignments for people, right? And to help them have a sex change. But you guys are never going to address the real issues with the black community and black men. But the issue being that the wealth gap is so far out of control, we will never catch up. I'm a black man. It's so far removed from catching up, we could not catch a rocket ship to catch back up to where the wealth gap is at right now. But yet, you want to stand behind gender reassignments and allocate dollars to that? You are out of your mind, and you've got your priorities confused. MAMALA.
He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we...
Okay, so you guys have been in office for 4 years. Why did you not offer a plan for affordable housing in these 3.5 to 4 years that you've already been there? Why are you trying to use this to run on right now when you've been there? What's really good, Kabama? Huh? What's good? Yeah, we're going to let you keep talking. Let's go.
Need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied.
I'll give her one thing. Now she is talking about her. But let's see if she brings Big Daddy Trump in. Hold on.
Our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy. His would make them weaker.
Why do you think people
inflation?
Say...
Now, soon as I try to give her some props, what does she do? She gets to the 50-yard line and fumbles again. What is wrong with you? You need to go back to practice and learn how to catch the ball and run instead of worrying about who's going to be catching the ball next. Worry about the ball in your hand. Let's continue, MAMALA.
And invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward.
You know what? One thing I noticed too, do you guys remember when Trump was in office, there was no wars, like the wars stopped? As soon as the Democrats got into office, wars started up like in the same week, if not shortly after your boy Biden became the president. What is up with these people? It's like they have this playbook of insanity that they think that they're just going to keep on running, and that the American public and black people too are going to just keep falling for this. You are out of your mind, Mabama.
Because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward.
There we go.
They want a president who has a plan.
I think she's in love and obsessed with Donald Trump, because to dislike someone the way that she says I have people in my life that I dislike. I no longer talk about them. I have moved on. Okay. So instead of her telling us about how great her plans are and telling about her accomplishments so far since she's been in office, she wants to deflect everything to Donald Trump. That's not how you're going to win, sweetheart. Now, MAMALA, let's see if you can shoot straight right now. Let's go.
And for the future, and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were
What about Biden's plan with his son to let him go and run amok on Earth and do all the deals that he's done, getting money and padding his own pockets? What about that? Can you talk about that?
on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden. You're not.
She just can't keep his name out of her ratchet mouth. Her wretched, ratchet mouth. You just can't keep his name out of your mouth. You know what? This is why you're going to lose right here. And I'm being objective because I'm not even going to vote. But you know what? This is why you're going to lose. Because instead of harping on you and how great you are, you got to go back to the big daddy. Okay? The big joker. Okay? And you cannot trump the big joker.
Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences.
Somebody break the news to her. MAMALA, you're not going to win. It's hammer time. And I'm being fair, honest, and objective. Okay, your administration, only thing I can really talk about with you guys in office is I go to the grocery store and I've never seen $100 buy such few items until you guys have come into office. I've never experienced anything like this. You go to Costco, you spend $500 and you might get 30 or 40 items. Out of control, okay? So I don't want to hear it. You keep talking about your boy, but it wasn't like this when the big daddy joker was in office. You can't trump that. Bacala.
And fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are...
But Baraka, your partner did. Your partner, Joe Biden, spent many, many years in D.C. And one thing that he did was help to introduce the crime bill to the world. Yeah, so let's continue.
Supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page.
That is a haymaker right there, Bret. You just rocked her jaw. You know, like when you see a boxer get cracked right on the chin, and then they start walking around looking like they drunk a fifth of Hennessy, and then they start twirling around, and then you see him just, whoa, there he goes, and slam and hit their head on the canvas. That's what Kamala, Maraca, whatever her name is, that's what she's about to do. Let's watch this haymaker.
From the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers.
He was in office for 4 years. You guys have been in office for 12, starting with Barack. And this is all his fault. It's all Big Daddy's fault, huh?
At each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is.
He obviously needs to beat you down, and he is, because we're tired. We're tired, Makala, McCamey. We're tired of your rhetoric. We tired. We sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is
tell
about turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Bret.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track.
Wow.
If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and president. That track.
Let's look at that. You know what? Stop. Hammer time. It's over with right there. That is a landslide. If this is indicative of the polls that are happening and that will be going on, and the voting, it's over. Rakaka, cockamamie, it's over. That's a wrap. Right there. That's a wrap.
The country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
My God. How? Yeah, that haymaker stunned her. She's about to speak in with the Holy Ghost. I love you. Mama say, because you know what? She cannot answer the question straight ever, and she doesn't. Oh my God! Let's just listen to this. Watch this buffoonery, everybody. Watch this.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
There's
you
the
and I
smile.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I.
There's the fake smile. Let's go.
Both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen, Over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he...
She is delusional. She is delusional. He didn't hit her so hard with that haymaker. She thinks she's in an alternate universe.
He is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends...
No, people are exhausted with you, Kamala, and your boy, because he's asking you about you guys being in office, and then once again, you jump to the Big Daddy Joker. And we all know you can't trump that.
Full-time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances, and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be...
He just hit her with the uppercut. Let's go.
The 47th president of the United States. Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people.
This is astonishing. Let's continue.
The one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president.
I honestly have never heard him say that. Now, if someone could supply me the sound bite, or maybe I'll look for that, I have never heard Big Daddy say that. So let's continue.
And today, Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about...
He should turn the American military on you and old Joe, Sleepy Joseph. That's what he should do.
Going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy.
Never heard that.
And in a democracy,
I've never heard that.
The president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump...
The significance of that.
This is kind of like when a woman can't get over a man that says, I don't love you anymore. Like, she is obsessed. Golly.
Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say...
But that's from the Democratic playbook. Nancy Pelosi said, whatever questions that you are asked, and she said this about the last election with Biden, whatever they ask you, just blame everything on Trump. That is in the Democratic playbook. So disgusting.
Say now
He's unstable.
unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
You're
he's
unstable.
not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this.
And-
You
and-
told me.
Uh-oh. This is going to be the finishing move. I hear it coming. You guys ready for the finishing move? Here we go.
Should all be
Interviewers
concerned.
that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President
Look at her
Biden's
face.
mental
Look at this face. Look at this lying little face. From Macabre. Look at that. Let's go.
faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from
Abracadabra is about to lie so hard. Look at this. Look at these lying eyes from Abracadabra.
the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly.
You know what? I have made it a point to stop cursing, but I'm about to curse right now. Are you fucking kidding me? Look at this.
What he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And
but
Donald Trump
But you
is.
Wow. Yeah. She is out of her pickaninny Kamala mind. MAMALA mind. You are out of that. And so is your boy Joe.
talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said
and
within a
if
few
you
minutes of
watch
talking to President
Donald
Biden
Trump-
at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same
Brett,
Joe Biden that we saw on the debate
Donald
stage.
Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again.
And Joe Biden said, I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Joe Biden. Is he fit to lead? No, he's not, obviously, because you're running and not him.
Including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat
I think he'd have knocked her block off at this point.
that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently,
Here we go with more lies.
whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there.
There goes Cameron with that fake smile of hers. Let's go.
Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its.
K. Diddy is full of lies. Thinks she's ready to get back to her freak off. Who knows? Come on, K. Diddler.
Requirement to defend it.
Matter of fact, I saw a picture of K. Diddler at a party of P. diddlers. Now, I can't confirm what she was doing there, but I did see that. If anyone else saw it, let me know. Come on, K. Diddler.
Itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those
is,
proxies were getting funded by
my
Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates
and then
in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration that
Iran regime
that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America's military and military service people.
Now you're just getting disrespectful, Cam. Come on, Cam. You're getting disrespectful. This is disrespectful. Okay? Now look, K. Diddy, you just let the man speak. It's almost over. We're going to take you out of the torture chamber in a second. Okay? So you just be quiet, be a good little K. Diddler. Okay? Because you might have a hot cell waiting for you too. But let the man continue before you so rudely interrupt him.
Calling them suckers and losers,
Hamas,
has diminished the significance.
So you just gonna keep being disrespectful, huh? We got something for your ass.
For each other, I apologize.
Well, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the
Killer Cam, you just gonna keep interrupting that man, huh?
Facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision that they feel.
Who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you.
She's pissed. Oh, you heard what he said? There's lots more that people want to learn about you.
And your policies.
Yes.
And that's why
I invite everyone to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
and that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap here.
Well, I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean.
So what I would like to say is Kamala Harris is pretty delusional. She can't keep Big Daddy Joker Trump's name out of her mouth. She does not like the truth, trying to pretend as if Joe Biden has been competent when we all know that he introduced us to his wife, which was him. Okay? So you know what? That's it. You guys leave comments below. Tell me what you think, and thank you for watching the Viral News Source, where we bring all of the hottest viral news. Peace and bye, Killer Cam. Bye-bye.